Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume. The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content. Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my Sparkfile. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my Sparkfile. I jump into my Sparkfile. Let's open up the Sparkfile.
But it was basically that idea that we live in a we live in a system that wants us to consume more, that cultivates a feeling of less than, that you're a less than, or that you have a lack, and that needs to be remedied with consumption.
That's absolutely correct. It's not our imagination. It's intentional, and it's a necessary evil.
It works on me. It works on me.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah. I mean, think about like the expectation for companies is that their sales will increase continually and indefinitely. How the fuck do you do that? You can only do it by convincing people. Think about our clothes. Like, you don't need, there used to be 4 seasons of clothes. Now there's 6. Is that true? Yeah.
And
it's a constant.
And this idea of, I know that being fashionable but this idea of just having to have, I guess we should introduce ourselves and then we'll get back to this conversation.
Oh, have we started?
Oh, yes. Welcome to Spark File, your one-stop shop for creative inspiration.
Hi. This is Laura Camien.
I'm Susan Blackwell. We're makers who make all sorts of things.
And if you're like us and you're making things all the time, you know that sometimes the fish pond of inspiration can get a little tapped out.
So we're always on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or a pot holder.
Or the Great American Novel.
Oh, nice. So every episode, we're going to reach into the Spark File and we're going to exchange some sparks. And then we're going to talk to some people, some folks who spark us as well.
If you're not careful, you just might get your fish pond restocked. Mm-hmm. Why does that feel like such a threat? So without further ado, let's open up the Spark File.
The Spark File.
Me, Susan Blackwell, this is what my voice sounds like. Me and Laura Camien.
This is what my voice sounds like.
Have made a commitment for this calendar year of 2019 that we are not buying any clothes.
Susan, I almost effed that up big time. I literally, the other day, I was bummed out and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to shop a little bit. And I put like 4 or 5 items into the shopping bag. Mm-hmm. I did the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I want that time back now. But I did. I found all these things. And then when it came time, I was like, I don't need this shit.
And you let it go.
I let it go.
Did you think about it again?
No.
Until this moment.
I'm fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wrote this down this is in my notebook from our last episode. Consumption is the lazy counterfeit of creativity.
Ooh, that's poetic.
Is it? There's a distinction between consuming ideas and images and nature and adventure and experience and buying shit.
That's right.
That's what I mean in consumption when I say I mean buying shit. I also mean consumption, the ancient illness. Used in a sentence. I can't go with you tonight. I'm suffering from consumption.
Susan's at home. She's suffering from consumption.
I'm on my fainting couch.
But no, I think it's really interesting that there's a seductiveness to it, especially when we are, let's say, like redesigning our homes or furnishing our homes.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because I feel like I felt this way. I remember this thought first came to me in graduate school. This is actually piggybacks on your Dita Rose robe from last episode. Feeling like I had this sort of almost like it's not, I don't know, maybe it's a compulsion, just like this sort of amorphous cloud of free floating compulsion that would attach itself to whatever the thing is that I don't mean this in a good way either. Like, so if it's like, I'm not going to buy clothes this year, but instead I'm buying stuff for our house, or I'm not going to, I'm not eating sugar. So instead I'm going to do some other thing. So instead I'm going to buy, shoes. Like, I feel like there's always, it's like one of those whack-a-mole games where I can take away, I'm not going to buy clothes for the calendar year. And so far I've been great.
Yes.
But I still, will hit that sale rack at Anthropologie and get cups.
Home things.
Yes.
I don't know.
I enjoy it, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I think that there's a couple of things at play. Like when we're talking about this sort of the feeling of creativity, the counterfeit
yes, please
feeling.
Bring it back to theme. Good job.
I didn't. That was not intentional. This is legit. This concept where you're talking about this counterfeit feeling, like
I do think it's a substitution,
right?
I think it's no. I do think it's an easy way to be like, oh, I made something beautiful because I bought that blouse, and it's like, or you could do your writing or whatever it is. Yeah,
I agree with you on that. But I also think something else can be true. Just talking about like our homes, we both like mid-century modern things, and there's something really engaging about the quest for, uncovering an object that is, not easy to find.
Yes,
but there's more. Well, we were just talking today about a little gallery of artwork that Susan has on her wall. And it's a combination of things new and old and
a little bit of home goods,
a little bit of oil painting from the 60s. And the thing that's tricky about this is that it's not untrue that the purchasing of those things was a creative act, and you did, especially once you had them, and the combining of these things
absolutely
tapped into a subconscious and felt very, very satisfying. So there are times when, it's not untrue, but it doesn't mean, we shouldn't be.
I'm interested though. There's a question that I ask there's a workshop that I teach, and one of the questions I like to ask is for people to consider things that they have made, things that they have created with little or no money. Just reflect on things that you have created with little or no money. And sometimes I do like the challenge of that.
Question, when I write a script, then do I have to count how much it costs for me to get final draft?
Little
and how
or
much
no
my
money.
Laptop
well, I mean,
there's
there's sort of startup costs for a lot of things.
But then once those are spent, can I say it was free for me to write that script?
I think sometimes people are, when one of the things they're like, I'll get a MacBook Air and I'll have like a beautiful space to write. It's actually beautifully depicted we were just watching Friends from College. Is that the name of that show?
We love that show. And
love that show.
They're not going to do a season 3.
You're kidding me. I'm learning this for the first time. Why?
I'm so bummed because I love Fred
there
Savage
are more
on that show.
laughs. Fred Savage. There are more laughs in that show. We laugh out loud at that show.
Yeah, I love.
But they depict him. He's like, I was an agent, and now I want to be a writer. I'm going to co-write this book. And he does. He has like his whole setup, and he makes all that investment, and then he's like, oh, I actually don't enjoy this,
I don't like the process of writing.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm bummed that's not coming back.
I know. When I read that, I was
if you
devastated.
were involved in making of that show, if you wrote it, if you created it, if you appeared on it, please know how much joy it has brought us.
Yeah,
that writing.
That's a big thank you. I didn't know you watched it.
We love it. And P.S. who's ever doing wardrobe on that show, the costume design is great.
Oh my gosh.
I
forget her character's name, but oof.
I love looking at the costumes on that show. Good job.
Yeah. Well done.
I feel like we should get...
Okay. We should
dig
do
in.
it. We should totally share some sparks.
Do you want to go first?
Taking. Oh my God. Okay. Yes, I'll go first.
Oh.
It's my turn.
All right. I'm excited.
I'll do it.
Sometimes I like to go first because I get nervous and I just want to sit back, relax, and enjoy when you go. But I'm going to give you my full attention.
Thank you. I'm going to do the same for you when it's your turn.
Okay.
Okay. So mine this week is called The Curious Case of the Nine-Ender.
I almost spit tea. Oh my God.
Susan almost spit her tea out. You guys
the Curious Case of the reminds me of an Encyclopedia Brown title, but the Nine-Ender reminds me of something you might buy in a adult store.
Sex shop. I was going to say it sounds like a Nancy Drew episode.
Nope.
But no.
That would be a very special episode of the Nancy Drew. Say it again.
The Curious Case of the Nine-Ender.
I love how you're titling your sparks.
I don't know. That just came to me.
Great.
All right. So everybody knows that there's a very special power associated with prices that end in 9, like 99 cents, $12.99, $9.99, etc. And the weird thing is that even though like we're aware of it, it still works. And
because we round down, if it's like it's $19.99, we're like it's in the teens.
$19.
We're not like $20. It's $20 minus a penny.
That's right.
That's
right. That's exactly it.
I feel like such a rube when you tell. Oh God, guilty as charged.
Even though people are aware of it, it still happens.
Yeah.
It's still a constant. And like the difference, they say like the difference between, if you were to say $20 versus $25, you're like, that's $5.
Yeah.
But if you say that like the difference between $19.99 and $24.99, it's like, oof, that's a big difference. I'm gonna get this $19.99. Same $5, folks. Same $5. So I read a little bit about the history of this. It dates back to 1875 when the Chicago Daily News started, for the first time, and they priced their paper at 1 cent, but there weren't enough pennies in circulation.
Really?
It's kind of a problem. So where they were selling the newspaper, they talked the store into lowering their prices by a penny. And so people would like go ahead, like get that paper as well.
So they'd be like, I'll have the loaf of bread
for
I'll have the oleo.
And I'll take that Chicago Daily News, please,
right,
for 1 penny. I'm sure we got all those prices wrong.
Interesting.
But lo and behold, that store saw an increase like in all sales of everything when they reduced it by a penny.
We're just like such...
Yeah.
We think we're so evolved.
We're not. And in marketing, it's called the left digit effect.
The left digit effect.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's like the digit on the left. If it's a 9.
No, that'll be on the right.
Well, if you're looking in a mirror, I don't know why they call it the left digit effect. Why?
Science. I don't know, girl. This is your spark.
Shit. Well, okay. I've not done my homework. But nonetheless, it's the...
maybe it's not left and right. Maybe it's what's left over. The left digit. I don't fucking know. I'm trying to throw you a bone.
The abandoned digit.
I don't know, girl.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Anyway, we'll just refer to it as odd pricing, which is another name for it. So now over 60% of all prices end in a 9, which is crazy.
Wow.
They even did studies that like a store would have a dress for like $34. If you raise the price of that dress to $39,
but make it $39.99?
No, can just be $39.
Because it still has a 9?
It's the 9 ender.
Are you? Oh my God! It's not a double dong. It's a 9 ender.
Oh my God! I really I didn't see this coming.
Not safe for work.
That's right. All right, pull it together. So you can raise the price and increase sales. Still,
wow,
it's crazy. But this interesting fun fact. This has gone on like forever. But one really large retailer tried to buck this system. I don't know if you remember this, but JCPenney, not long ago, I don't remember exactly when, but they hired a man named Ron Johnson, who was from Apple. He'd been at Apple for 12 years. He had revolutionized what we think of a computer store. He had made billions in 2 years, like for the store. And he willingly left there to take on this challenge because JCPenney needed a makeover.
Yeah.
And his idea was that they'd eliminate this game that we're all playing.
Uh-oh.
And the whole campaign, like they had obviously prices that end in 99. They had 1,000 sales per year. And he just was like, let's just cut the crap.
That's very Apple.
Very Apple.
Right. No sales, no like.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he's like, I could do this for this 110-year-old retailer, right?
Uh-oh.
So he, instead of like inflating the price just so that that we can all see it marked down, he kind of called bullshit on all of that. And he was like, we're going to reinvent this. We're going to call it the fair and square pricing. And he dropped the prices at JCPenney by like 40%.
Really?
They did a whole advertising campaign and was like, we're going to offer these low prices daily. You know, it's not about the sale. It's like every day you can get, no games, just great prices, fair and square.
I don't think we like that.
We didn't like it at all.
We didn't, did we?
It turns out that people want.
It's so funny because you were not tipping your cards at all, and I was like, we want to feel like we're getting.
That's right.
A sale, a bargain.
We want to see like basically what they found out, an enormous fail, like sales dropped by 40%.
Oh God.
They cut his salary by like 96%. Tells you something about how much Ron was making to begin with.
Wow.
But we want
what's his Ron Swanson?
Seduced.
What was his name?
Ron Johnson.
I'm picturing Ron Swanson working at JCPenney. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Johnson.
Okay.
I thought you were going to a dirty place again.
Nope.
We're like, okay, nope, we're not going to do it.
Okay. So that was a great big fat fail.
A big fat fail. And, so they found that like if the tag on a shirt just says $14, people assume it's a cheaply made shirt, not a shirt that I would want. But if they see the tag and they see like it was a $50 shirt, and then it was $42,
getting it for $14.
And then it was,
do you know sometimes if I'm like, say I'm at J. Crew and you'll see like a hang tag and it has like over the top of it, there's another sticker, and over the top of it, there's another sticker, and then over the top of that, there's another sticker that indicates like in our minds we think, oh, the price has gone down. Every once in a while, because I am a little bit sale obsessed. I'll just like, peel off. And I'm like, that's the same sticker price that they just stickered over again. Sometimes there's a dissension in price, but sometimes I'm like, I think this was a tactic.
Wow.
I could be wrong, but I have thought that before.
That's obnoxious.
But it's the same thing. It's giving people the impression that you're getting a great deal because this thing that has that somebody paid, full price, $120 for. I'm getting this thing. I got it at $24.
Even though we know like that original price was totally arbitrary. It was marked up based on the assumption that they would eventually mark it down by 60%. And they're still making money off of it.
Oh,
I mean, that's crazy.
Oh my God, I feel like such a rube.
But you're not a rube. We're trained. We've been trained and conditioned. But what really sparked me this week.
Oh, here we go.
Is that
here we go. Listen up.
The 9 under is that there is research.
And also, it looks in my mind, it's like a cat of nine tails. That whip.
Oh God,
the cat of nine tails. But then with oh God,
a little end on
I
it.
hope my parents are. Yeah, like some sort of dildo. I don't know. I don't know. Camien, keep talking.
Oh, this is only episode 2.
Beware
folks.
the 9 ender.
Beware the 9 ender.
The curious case
of the 9 ender. Not a term I made up, by the way. So what really sparked me is that there's research that suggests that the power of 9 affects us in other ways, not just in pricing, but specifically that being an age that ends in 9 may lead us to do things that we're less likely to do at other ages.
What?
That's right. So these people are called 9 enders.
I'm a 9 ender.
You're a 9 ender. I know. You're a 9 ender.
What are you going to tell me?
So, this term was coined.
Just pause 1 second before you tell me.
Okay, we're pausing.
I just want to take this moment to say, we all think we're such special, unique, just like there's no one else. We're just all these little sweet, I don't want to use the word snowflake because it has a negative connotation, but that we are unique and complex. Yeah. And when you start unpacking stuff like this, I'm just like, oh no,
ouch.
We are really just, it's just like textbook.
I'm a speck of dust.
Go ahead.
On a speck of dust.
Tell me.
Just like
Horton,
other
here's a
specks.
who. Tell me. just give it to me straight.
All right. So the term 9 ender was coined by marketing psychologists, which let's just pause there. Like, why didn't I become a marketing psychologist?
You can do whatever you want. There's still time.
So
I never want to do anything that requires additional study.
That's work. That's
I don't want
really
to write
work,
any more papers.
Listen, instead I could have a podcast where I talk about all this stuff without having a degree in it.
No accreditation. Go ahead.
That's right. Could we please call our next podcast No Accreditation?
Yes.
All right. So marketing psychologist Adam Atler and Hal Hirschfield. And they theorize that people who are staring down the end of a decade engage in meaning-seeking behaviors. First of all, I really love the phrase staring down the end of a decade.
Meaning-seeking behaviors.
That's right. Let me tell you more about that.
Please do.
So they thought it was really odd, just kind of arbitrary that our culture puts such a significance on turning 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. That age is not any different. There's just nothing different.
But those are considered milestone birthdays.
Exactly. Yeah. So they think about milestone ages as opportunities to either do really stupid shit or to get a grip and reevaluate your life.
So you're going to bungee jump something about it, or you're going to get your shit together.
Well, interesting. Yeah, you could say that. You could say it. You could lump them into those things, but I'll tell you specifically what they studied. And I'll say, when I was turning 40, I felt this, I definitely flirted with some really bad decisions.
Really?
And thankfully only flirted with them. It just was oh my God.
Anything you can talk about on mic?
Not on mic. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do anything bad, but it was a sort of a feeling of just fuck it all.
Well, were you what if I just quit my job and travel the world? Was
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not the worst decision, but
not the worst, but may not have been the most sound either.
Okay.
But I felt a desire for a big change. And most of all, I felt the weirdest sensation of like suddenly time was moving so fast. I woke up one day, it was like, there's not enough time. There's not enough time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got through that, and definitely like I could look back and be like, oh wow, that was a really weird moment of panic in regard to this age. So back to our marketing psychologists. They decided to study this phenomenon, and they looked at various data sets like marathon signups, like who signs up for marathons.
Yes.
Suicide rates.
Oh.
Boo.
Hooray. Boo.
I should not be laughing, but I am. Because it's just being with Blackwell. So marathon signups, suicide rates, and profile data from ashleymadison.com.
What?
So if you don't know what that is, it's like the affair website. It's like
it's a dating service for people who are interested in having affairs.
That's right. And you're just straight up, I'm having an affair. Like you go into it.
I was listening to a thing about just this week about Ashley Madison and the data breach and all that stuff. And they were saying that a lot of the people, so there were of course men on that website looking to horn dog out, no judgment. And then a lot of the women, I'm using air quotes, on that site were actually like bots. That maybe there weren't as many women on that site as they might have represented.
Wow, I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe that. Or maybe don't all look.
But I'm unclear. So I get like, oh, P.S. Neither of us were laughing at suicide.
No,
we're not. We were just releasing tension. But you're saying.
They looked at who was signing up for marathons.
They're signing up for. I can understand that.
They looked at suicide rates.
And they looked at who was signing up. Who wanted to be like, I'm not getting any younger.
I'm having an affair. Life is too short.
I'm a 9-ender.
That's right.
I need to get some loving while I can. While the getting's good.
That's right.
Got it.
Okay.
Fascinating.
So, all of this, by the way, this data was published in a book called When. The Scientific Secrets of Perfect Timing. The funny thing is, like, when I read a little bit about the book, I haven't read the book. I read some articles about it. I'm guilty of that.
Oh, please.
But
yeah.
But this book's by Daniel Pink, and
he's fancy.
He explains like we think of timing as kind of an art form, like intuitively,
we're special and unique, and intuition. Yes.
We'll make these decisions at the right time. When timing is actually a science, it's not an art. It's truly just scientific.
Lemmings.
So here's some data. 29-year-olds were twice as likely to run a marathon than 28-year-olds or 30-year-olds.
Oh, wow.
49-year-olds were 3 times as likely to run a marathon than 50-year-olds.
Wow.
Fascinating, right? Suicide in 9-enders is higher than any other groups.
Wow.
And 9-enders are 18% more likely to be on Ashley Madison. But some people questioned, and rightly so, are people telling the truth when they're on Ashley Madison?
Oh, are they representing their age accurately?
It's hard to know. They might be like 52, but they're like, I'm 49. So that's a little hard to know.
Got it.
But there are some, who wonder, oh, wait, that was a totally different thing. So I just wanted to say it is fascinating to think about like being an age where you might like make a crazy decision, might make some choices that seem off brand for you.
Well, you're just like, I don't know why, but I'm compelled to jump out of an airplane. I
always think about like character motivations and things like that when I'm, when you're writing. And so in terms of a spark, it's just a fascinating thing. If you're aging a character.
Interesting.
What someone might do as they approach one of those milestone ages versus someone who's, 26 or 36. But it's just to me, it's an interesting thing to think about, but also interesting, personally. And one other thing that was explored, there's absolutely no data about this, but
this is us just pulling it out of our buttholes.
Well, some other people pulled it out of their butthole, but they were speculating, like, if we as individuals feel something different as nine enders, is it possible that collectively as a culture, we might feel something different? Like we're 2019 about to switch to 2020.
Oh.
So might this be a year where
I'm a nine ender in a nine ender year.
You are.
Jeez, double down on it, Blackwell.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had not thought of that.
I am.
But so this person sort of speculated, is it possible that, is there like a collective unconscious that's like, let's all do something significant this year. Let this be the year that we make a difference, and yada, yada, yada. And
interesting.
You can see, like,
as you're talking, I'm looking back over, so just to remove the mystery, I will be turning 50. Can you believe it?
I can't believe it.
I have the spirit of a 15-year-old boy. I'm turning 50 and I'm looking back over this past year and I'm thinking, I don't think I did anything. I'm not suicidal. I'm not joining Ashley Madison. May she rest in peace. Is Ashley Madison done? Did the data breach kill Ashley Madison?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, good on you, Ashley Madison, doing God's work. So, actually, I have no judgment about that. I have no judgment.
That's good.
I don't.
I can't say the same.
I was listening to this thing and I was like, I feel like there are people on there. Like, what if maybe your spouse, your partner, long-term partner, who the love of your life has had early onset Alzheimer's, and you have been caring for someone and they are in a near vegetative, like, I think there are sometimes people want companionship. People want, I don't know. I just think there's more than one version of the person that's on that would be drawn to something like that.
Agreed.
And, but also I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't think I know enough about it, but I don't know. What was I saying? I'm just looking back over this, this year and thinking, have I done things that are me sensing that milestone, like coming up? And I don't know. I mean,
I can say,
do you have an observation?
Yes,
about that?
I have an observation. I don't think you've, made any like rash decisions or anything like that, but I think that you have taken stock, and that's a very productive way that nine enders can behave. Just, where am I in my life? What do I want to get from my life? What's next for me? Where do I want to put my energy and my focus?
I feel like I am doing that
all the time,
frequently. Now I don't remember where I was around my 39, 40. I'd have to go back to my calendar and look. I'm bad at remembering that stuff, but I know 29 heading into 30, I had a major, that was one of the most significant come to Jesus's at my birthday, rolling into my 30s, my 30th birthday. I remember, were you at my 30th birthday? I think I have a picture. You were in the basement of the Cornelia Street Cafe.
Oh,
I think I have a picture, and we're standing next to each other. And I was in the bathroom remember in the basement of the Cornelia Street Cafe. I was in one of the bathrooms, and I remember clutching the sink and looking into the mirror and thinking, what is wrong with me? Like, something was like rising up in me. I was like, am I having it didn't feel like a panic attack. It wasn't like that, but I was like, there's a wave cresting, and it's storms are coming.
Wow.
Storms are coming.
And did a storm come?
It sure did.
In a big way.
Huge. So that I remember. And I don't think that it is outlandish to think that it was tied to that milestone birthday. And it was sort of like all the pieces are in place. You're ready to face some big stuff from your past. And so strap in, folks, because the next few years are going to be a pretty tumultuous contemplation and processing of a lot of stuff. And it was. Happy to say I'm not exactly in that place.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of that stuff got cleaned up, but I feel like I'm in a continual state, not all day, every day, 24/7,
right.
but I'm a pretty contemplative person, and I'm always trying to be betterer. So,
and self-reflect.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you're necessarily the norm. You know what I mean? For some people, I think that they do take stock in different ways. Like my sister is turning 50 this year, this year. And she was like, I want to, like, can we run a half marathon? Just to be clear there, that was a half marathon. And I was like, how about a 5K? But
baby steps.
It's not a negative thing, but I think what's really fascinating is learning that, again, that it's like science as opposed to within our control. So just
is it science? Do we call this science? Are we in the realm of science? Marketing science?
Yeah, we're in the realm of science, just in that, like, studying these phenomenon,
human behavior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, it might be specific to certain cultures rather than others, but, in the time and the culture that we're living in right now, there are patterns associated with those ages. So if you are approaching a milestone age and if you are experiencing some
that being said, I'm going to jump out of a plane with no parachute.
No. So not funny.
But I guess there are little things that I'm doing. Like I'm trying to, by my birth date, like I've made a commitment to like a regular exercise program because I'm like, I don't want to go into 50 being like, I feel like a schlub.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Like things like that.
But nowhere near, I think, what it could be for a person who is like hitting 50, which I think is like a milestone birthday.
Serious milestone.
And I feel like I guess what I'm saying succinctly is I feel like I clean as I go.
That's great.
And so maybe it's just a celebration of gratitude.
Yeah.
Is what this 50 feels like.
That's great. And if everyone can take a page from that book,
but please,
that's great.
Or not.
Because I
don't think I have it all figured out, but that's just where I'm at.
I think that's great. But I do think there may be people who are experiencing feelings and wondering what to do with them or why they're there. And it's okay. It's going to pass because you're going to turn into
so
the next
one takeaway from this is if you start to have like these impulses.
That's right.
Like
to buy a Camaro.
Yeah. Just go ahead and check if you're a 9-ender.
Exactly. Check yourself.
The curious case of the 9-ender.
Let's see if when I'm 40, I actually want this car.
I would love it if one of the sparks that somebody took away from this is that they designed, someone please design a sex toy called the 9-ender.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
I think there's something to that.
We might be responsible for that.
On that note, take it, make it.
Take it and make it.
And now
please.
A message from our sponsor. Wait, were you all done?
No.
Oh, shit.
No, I'm done. I'm totally
you are?
done. Yeah.
Good Spark.
Our sponsor
today. So I don't know that we have sponsors lined up yet.
I was trying to think of the name of a sex shop. What's that one on the Lower East Side?
Like Babes in Toyland?
Babes in Toyland is our sponsor this week.
I love it.
Fake sponsor, Babes in Toyland.
What is do you have a favorite like product?
Oh,
when it comes to
Babes in Toyland?
Yeah, I'll go.
You go, girl.
You know what? I Sliquid. There's a lube called Sliquid. This is not an ad. I'm just telling you. I'm a happy user of Sliquid. It's a water-based lubricant.
I'm going to look into that.
It's great.
I'm gonna look into that.
It's
Thank
great.
You so
water-based
much.
lube.
That's a spark right there.
There you go. Do you got anything?
No.
All right.
Sliquid. I like it.
For all your lubrication needs. We'll be right back after this break. we're back.
Here we are.
So
Liquid.
my spark this week,
Yes.
I've summed up in these words. You get back up and keep going.
Oh, okay.
You get back up, Camien, and you keep going.
Why did that reminds me of that song, that Tumbalumba song. What is it? Like, I get back up, but I get up again.
Chumbawamba.
What's the name of it?
Chumbawamba's the name of the band. I get knocked down,
but I get up again.
You're never gonna give me that. I like that song. You take a whiskey drink. You take a cider drink.
Yes.
Take your mama drink. You take a baby drink. I feel like, is Chumbawamba going to sue us?
Maybe for
Fingers
singing
crossed.
that song so poorly.
No, my spark is you get back up and keep going.
Okay. Woo.
The essence of this spark, originally, I'm going to say half of it was handed to me by my former coworker, writer and comic, Charlie Nadler.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie. I remember one day we were sitting at our office. I'm drunk. At our office job, and our desks were like two desks like put together, and so we faced each other. Like we had our computers, but if we just like looked to the side of our monitor, kind of the way we're facing each other now,
Charlie.
I'd just be like, Charlie. And I remember one day I asked Charlie, who's a comic and writer, who his favorite comic was, and he said John Mulaney.
Oh,
and I said, who dat? New phone, who dis? But this was years ago.
Before John Mulaney was John Mulaney.
And then the great Alex Brightman, hi Alex, recommended a podcast to me called You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes. And I love that podcast. Hi Pete Holmes, if you're listening.
Pete.
I was seen for crashing. I did not book. But I love your podcast, and I just love him, and I love Pete's energy. But so thank you, Alex Brightman, for that. But the bulk of the material I'm about to share with you comes from episode 332 of Pete Holmes' podcast, You Made It Weird, with his guest and old friend, John Mulaney. So good. And some of this comes from a light dusting of Wikipedia.
Thanks, Wikipedia.
Thanks to Wikipedia. So now I and most of the rest of the world have fallen in love with John Mulaney. If you don't know who John Mulaney is, he was for years a writer on Saturday Night Live. And I don't know if he wrote or co-wrote, didn't bother to do the research, with Bill Hader. He wrote the character of Stefan, who would perform on Weekend Update. Are you looking at me like you don't know?
I need more info.
Camien, I'm going to pinch you.
Okay.
Stefan, he would come on and he was like a club kid, and he'd be like, the name of this club
Yes.
is
Yes.
It's got everything. That was Stefan.
Got it.
And I have to tell you, I'm an OG SNL fan.
Yes.
Love SNL.
Yes.
I'm never the person who's like, in the old days it was good, but this cast, I've always loved it.
Yeah.
I love the talent. I just love it. I love what they're trying to do.
The whole thing.
Love it. And of all the loves that I have of SNL, love Bill Hader and love Bill Hader doing Stefan. Love it. So Bill Hader would often, as the British say, corpse during Stefan, where he would laugh. He would start laughing while he was doing it, like eyes straight into camera, laughing. And I learned later, I suspected this, and then it was verified that it took a lot of time to write those pieces. And then when they would craft them. And then they would take the script to cue cards, and John Mulaney would just add or change a little piece of it. So Bill Hader was seeing it for the first time live in front of an audience.
Awesome.
Can you imagine?
Yes.
And then, of course, John Mulaney has done many stand-up specials, and he's co-starred in one of my favorite Broadway shows of all time, Oh, Hello, on Broadway, that played at the Lyceum Theater, where we performed Title of Show.
Title of Show.
That's right. So John Edmund Mulaney, he was born August 26th, 1982. He's a stand-up comic. He's an actor, a writer, a producer, best known for his work on Saturday Night Live and as a stand-up comic with many lauded stand-up specials. He was the creator and star of the short-lived Fox sitcom Mulaney. And that is what I want to focus on.
That's your spark right there.
Mulaney.
Mulaney.
It aired, it was made and aired 2014, 2015. I want to talk about how it failed and how its creator and star, John Mulaney, processed that failure. So this podcast, I've literally listened to this. This is really straight out of my Spark file. It's been in there for a long time. I've listened to it 5 times in its entirety. Yeah. I go back and I revisit it because I think it is so chock-a-block with sparks of there are sparks in it. I'm not even going to get to. But listen to it and enjoy it. So they're talking in the midst of the conversation. They're talking about how John Mulaney saying how he used to be terrified all the time, anxious all the time, terrified of every comedy booker, every person he came into contact with, which is interesting. You think of this very high performing, very successful young person, but he was talking about, and I really related to that feeling of being terrified all the time. And the idea of screwing up was so terrifying to him. And
sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just like, was it motivating? Because for a lot of people, that fear and terror would shut you down. And yet he was highly functioning. Well, he was cranking out material.
Yeah.
Despite the fear, which is amazing.
That's right. So he was saying that Pete Holmes was asking, you and I were actually talking about this over breakfast. Pete Holmes was asking if that bit of success kind of calmed that terror. And John Mulaney said, to a degree, but the failure has calmed him down. Ooh. The worst fear he ever had as a comedian kind of happened. And he was like, okay,
I survived that.
And he's talking about this sitcom, Mulaney. So this, by his account, and I think the world, I guess, would agree. I'm going more by his account of this, not by the world's account of it.
Fair enough.
It was a critical and commercial failure that no one saw coming. Pete Holmes talks about how at Comedy Central, they referred to John Mulaney as the Christ of comedy.
Oh my God.
I mean, he's really gifted writer, gifted comic.
But also the like the buildup and the expectation and the everyone around you is like,
Night Live. And I feel like he's really a stand-up. Like he, based on like Charlie's estimation of John Mulaney as a writer and a stand-up. So John Mulaney laughed and said at 30, after being called the Christ of comedy, hearing that he was called that, he said at 32, the sitcom Mulaney came out. And so it was fulfilled. And he talked about it being a kind of a death, and then a resurrection occurred. Wow. John Mulaney said, I didn't realize it then, but it was a godsend when I had to accept that comedy wasn't the most important thing. The failure of the sitcom gave me so much perspective. And he talks about how it wasn't like a Freaks and Geeks. It wasn't something that didn't do well, but everybody loved. People actively disliked this show, Mulaney.
Wow.
People that, this gives me a feeling even as I talk about somebody else's experience of it, because I have had feelings like this. People he respected never said anything about it to his face, he's like, so I assume that means they think I didn't nail it. It was poor. It was not received well commercially. It was hounded in the press. Headlines like countdown to cancellation. Ooh. In every direction of failure, no silver lining. Ouch. And he just had to sit in it, and he could not delude himself. He called it a hard failure.
And he was like alone in that little bowl of soup.
And he said, because he had been there, but it wasn't like a Jerry Seinfeld, Larry David partnership. Like he had been the only one there from day zero.
Oh my God.
And then later he had like collaborators like that he clearly adores come in and work with him on it. But but it
was his vision, his writing, his face on his everything, his name,
everything,
all of it.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah. It's so vulnerable.
It's so vulnerable. Say that word. Yeah.
He said it was one of those times when you're not paranoid. Everyone is talking about you. Yeah. You live in an industry city like New York or Los Angeles, and the whole city is making fun of you for 2 days.
This is hurting me.
I know.
It's hurting me.
He said that shortly after, like he went and did a live show and everyone was so nice to him, but nobody was mentioning it.
You're like, thanks, everybody.
Can you feel that? You feel that?
I feel it.
So there's a comic. I don't know if you've ever seen him. His name is Neil Brennan. He was a co-creator, writer. I'm not sure about creator, but I know like Dave Chappelle's writing partner, and they made Chappelle Show together. So very well regarded, very successful. And from everything I can tell, he seems to be like the oracle of truth, Neil Brennan.
Okay.
And John Mulaney said he called Neil Brennan and said, Neil, when I walk into a room, is everyone thinking that guy has that show that's failing? And Neil was like, yeah.
Yes.
People are probably thinking that it's
they
not
are.
popping.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you, Neil.
Well, here's a side spark, actually. And this is just a question, and I don't necessarily know the answer to it. How do we talk to, as makers and creators, and, compassionate people, but also people that are authentic? How do we talk about people regarding their work, including work that isn't for you, that you're like,
that's right,
not for me?
Yeah.
How do we? It gave me pause because they were talking about how helpful and refreshing that was, that honesty and that directness. And I think there's something to John Mulaney asked Neil Brennan directly. Is this what people are thinking?
This is what I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Is this true?
Yeah. And so I think maybe just to start trying to answer my own question, sometimes, do you have thoughts about this?
I do. And I was wondering something first. Like, to me, there's a distinction to be made in regard to like who's talking about it and what they're saying. When you think about, first of all, what it takes to get to the position where you have a sitcom named after you, that you are trusted with writing, that you are the face of, etc. First of all, that's a level of success that 99.9999% of the world will never achieve.
Sure.
That's A. So B is, I want to talk to those people and get the feedback from those people who, what I'm saying is, I suspect the people who are even in that realm, in that world of having
your peers,
have experienced a vulnerability on that level, they can give you feedback of a certain ilk.
Yeah.
And I welcome all of that. What I find less interesting and more frustrating, frankly, is the criticism and, from the peanut gallery, like,
unsolicited,
have you
trollish.
Yes, and I feel like sometimes that's the cruelest, because they're like super confident with their cruelty and what they would have done and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, but you have never even come
You're
close
sitting on
to
your couch.
that.
Like, what are you making?
Exactly. So
it's a little bit that, I'm going to get this so wrong, but I do love that quote about the man that's in the arena.
I fucking love
that
that's
quote.
one of my favorite.
Put that on
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt. That goes in the Spark file.
Honestly, Susan, that I have a personal, a personal belief, and for me, I will take all feedback. It is all welcome from people who are also in the arena of any kind. But what I don't, oftentimes, like, it's not that I don't appreciate it, but it isn't even useful from people who have never tried to make anything. They have a lot of criticisms about like how long it's taking, or why you did that, or that's inappropriate.
Can I just read this? It's going to take a little second.
Yeah.
So this is the quote we're talking about. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. but who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly? Thank you, Teddy Roosevelt. Thank you, Brene Brown.
Fuck yeah.
Yes, I hear you. So you're saying if it is a person who has a maker, a doer, who
of any kind,
who has also like put themselves out there in that way.
That's right.
They can have something to say.
That's right. Whether they've achieved
add to
any
that.
level of anything.
I'll add to
that's
that.
Fine.
It was solicited in this case.
I love it. Yes.
That to me is also a critical. So it's have they made, partially I think it's the relationship, like the relationship you have with your discussion partner, but it's also, did I ask?
Yes. And to me, the making is important, but it's really more about like, have they allowed themselves to be vulnerable on this level? And it may look different. It may be like a TED Talk or a presentation of some kind, but where they have experienced a vulnerability, that's required to be an artist of any kind. And yes, once solicited, I mean, if you are asking for it, please.
Yeah. You have strong feelings about that.
I have really strong feelings about it. Just like creating things is a lonely road sometimes, and you've got to
it's so vulnerable. It really is.
Yes.
Creativity takes courage. And I know that sometimes people are like, what? Like, why do you need courage to paint a watercolor?
They
but
see the end results of things. And you're like, oh, that obviously flowed freely and easily out of that person if they're truly talented. That's not true. And
but I think sometimes when you see something that really is poppin', something that really works, you forget all the time, capacity, and craft that went into it, because all of that burns away, and you just see Hamilton, or you just see Seinfeld, like, and great artists when they're doing that. That's great. But do you know how hard it is to make things of quality? This is a side beef I have to this. Side beef to the side spark. When people say, oh God, blank is such a bad actor. I'm just going to put this name in, and I don't feel this way, but I've heard they'll be like, Keanu Reeves is a bad actor. And I'm like, try doing what Keanu Reeves is doing in The Matrix.
That's right.
Try it. Give it a spin. I've spent some time on camera, and I think I'm big. I think I've got it going on.
That's right.
Do you know how, what something that you watch and you're like, I'm like, do you know what an achievement it is? You have no idea. You have no idea what goes into that.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's easy when you have no idea. I think it's really easy to take those shots.
Easy.
Yeah.
It's too easy.
But it's an interesting, so my takeaway from this side spark is it really depends on if the person has also made themselves vulnerable, if they're also like a maker peer, if it's solicited.
If it's solicited, I'll say this. If it's solicited, if you have to tell the truth. If you care about this person, it does them no good to say, no, dude, everybody's loving your show. You have to find kind ways to be honest. And there is a way to be honest with your friend and also kind and honest.
Pete Holmes, I believe, said to, I don't know when he said it in the process, but said to John Mulaney, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me.
Yes.
Which is about, it doesn't, I actually like that. And Amy Poehler talks about that in her book, Yes, Please. Good for you, not for me. Like,
God, that's great. You know who first taught me that it's not for me phrase? Manny Gracious.
Oh, hi, Manny. Are you listening?
Manny.
Probably not.
I would
so
love it if
smart.
Manny would listen.
So that's how because
That's
Manny's
right.
a maker. He's a writer.
And he was a publicist.
He puts himself out there.
He is someone whose opinion people seek out. And he also is a person of integrity. So he would be in a position very often to try to say, hey, it wasn't for me. I saw what you were going for. I think there are going to be people who like it, whatever may be the case. But, to be able to live with your own honesty and your own self.
Yeah. And he taught you, it wasn't for me.
It's not for me.
Good. And while we're here, one of the things that I have done in my 9-enders is I think it's really important to take opportunities to say what you mean to say to people. I do. I think it's that is something that I'm very aware of.
That's right.
I'd like to just take a moment to shout out Manny Gracious and say, I think he has done so much for both of us in terms of his support of us in all different ways, making things, writing things for us to enjoy, like play and splash around and creatively. So just so many ways that I won't enumerate now, but I will say thank you, Manny. And we're grateful that you are walking around on the planet and for all the things that you have done.
We got to run into you.
Yeah, no kidding.
Play with you.
So
that's awesome.
It wasn't for me. Thanks, Manny. And thanks, Pete Holmes, and thanks, John Mulaney. So Pete Holmes then went on to talk about how when something like a failure like this occurs, it is like a death when something that you love dies. And when you get the call on a Friday that you're not going to work on Monday, when you've just spent the last year and a half with a cast and you've just spent 2 years making. And there was something Pete Holmes said going into an office. Pete Holmes has also had a show that was canceled. And he said, going into an office and realizing to clean out your stuff and realizing it was never your office. It was a rental.
Oh.
And that sparked for me something. All of this is a rental. All of this is a rental.
Wow. Yeah.
Time is fleeting and all of I'm looking around my house right now.
We don't get to keep any of it.
Our people, the people we love so much, the pets we love so much. It's all a rental. I just actually loved that. And I was like, remember, I don't say it's all a rental, meaning like, so trash the place. I don't mean it like that. I mean, know that everything is always changing and transitioning.
That's
just
right.
like that.
That's right.
But John Mulaney talked about, yes, it is like a death. It's an anticlimax to 2 years of work. And then he said something that sparked my world. He said, I also realized that I didn't like doing it. I don't want to work all year round until 4 a.m. to make 22 episodes of a network show. I fully would have thought my whole life, this is what I wanted. And I had to accept you don't actually want this.
Whoa.
Now, I wonder if it had been a wild success, if he might feel differently. But there was something about that experience. And those people who create TV shows that you love, shows that you don't love, you really, and other big projects of, that require a huge amount of self and time and capacity, to have the realization after spending your whole life just loving TV and revering TV and being like, I'm going to make TV, and then getting up inside of it, but have my own show with my own name, getting up inside of it and being like, oh, I don't want this. That is a huge turnaround.
That's right.
That dawning realization, I don't think you can underestimate that.
Yeah.
And
it could be liberating. I mean, the pain of the failure, I know, notwithstanding, but the liberation, if you can accept.
But it's also, I think, terrifying, because it's like, well, if not that, what?
Yeah.
Now, he's the kind of guy that has irons in the fire. So, but still, I'm fascinated by this side spark, which is, how does it really feel when you get what you always wanted? How does it really feel?
Ooh.
What does it look like on the outside?
Yeah.
How does it feel on the inside? Which is one of our favorite questions.
Yes.
What does it look like on the outside? How does it feel on the inside? And also, side spark. I am fascinated with the concept of changing your choice. I'm fascinated by because I meet so many people that are like, well, I made a decision when I was 16 years old that all I wanted to do was act and be on Broadway. And then they have this crisis when they're older, and they're, and that older could be, they just racked up 4 years of student loan debt, getting their BFA in acting, or, they've really committed to this thing. And then they're like, this lifestyle doesn't agree with me.
That's right.
This schedule doesn't agree with me. This whatever doesn't agree with me. And being like, I can't tell you how many people I've looked in the eyes and said, it is okay to change your choice. Yeah. So there's that reckoning. But then there's also, if this isn't my identity, then what is? And that is a whole other, that's a whole other discovery process.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by all that.
What did John say or do at this juncture?
He talked about things that he did learn from it. Really fascinating. He learned a lot about like the writing and production things, about, leading, being in leadership on a show like that. He talked a lot about, they actually both Pete Holmes and John Mulaney commiserated about this shared delusion, they called it, that they had. Not only are we going to be really funny or talented or whatever you want to call it, we're also going to be the most likable person that anyone's ever worked with, right? So you're going to be a great leader, you're going to be great talent, great writer, great actor.
That's some pressure.
And John Mulaney says, and this is straight out of my Spark file, here's the thing, when something crashes and burns, no one cares that you took the notes. Meaning, you can be the most agreeable note-taking. Yes, I'll fold that in. I'll consider it. Right. Yes, we'll make those changes. You can be that person, but at the end of the day, when the Hindenburg goes down, it's not like those network executives were saying. In fairness to John, he was trying to compromise and take the notes.
That's right. He took all the notes that I gave him and changed it the way I thought it should be changed.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. They're not saying
his
that.
name is on the door.
Right.
So I thought that was a really interesting piece of learning that he had, which, usually I'm like, I think a lot about like how I think heavy is the head that wears the crown in these situations, because you better have a really clear vision, and but you also have to be a diplomat on some level.
Sure. And stay clear and true to your vision so that if it does fail, it fails completely. But
you did everything. But he talks about, there were some things where he talks about, he knew what he didn't want the show to be.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there was a little fuzziness around
what he did want it to
and
be.
In some ways he did know. He wanted it to be weirder. He wanted it to be a little bit meta and like sort of look at, like sort of play with the form of TV.
Yeah.
He said that he was terrified to return to stand up and face a crowd after that. His feeling was, and I quote, "They hate me. I know the show's sold out. I know they're so excited to see me, but they hate me. I know I'm going to go out there and everyone is going to laugh at me about the show. It's so weird that they bought tickets when they hate me."
Oh, God.
Yeah. That's
crushing.
That's when we say like it takes courage. Being an artist takes courage.
Yeah.
It is reckoning with those sorts of, even if they're, you hear that and you're like, that logic isn't sound, but it feels so true. It is like reckoning with that without, completely disintegrating or, becoming an alcoholic. And then he said a couple months in, it started to feel liberating, like he had nothing left to lose. 1 year after the show was canceled, he had a special that was coming out, a stand-up special. He said he was doing the most fun tour he had ever done, and they were about to start Oh Hello off Broadway. I cannot tell you the hours of pleasure that Oh Hello. Have you watched Oh Hello?
I haven't.
Camien,
I love Nick Kroll. I love
those two are so gifted. And
too much
I have to
tuna.
say, Nick Kroll is he is a really, really, I think, like a fantastic actor. But both of them they're like,
yes,
and the writing is just like jokes per capita in that show. It's so good. And I have to say, this is like a weird point of pride that nobody cares about but me. I'm so proud that Title of Show and Oh Hello played the same theater.
Oh,
isn't that weird?
No, it's not weird at all.
But I felt that way when we were doing it. I was like, in some way, we are connected across time with everybody who's ever performed on this stage.
Yeah,
and I feel that way very much for Oh Hello, even though those fools have no idea who I am. John Mulaney went on to say that when he was in his 20s, he actually took steps and made lists to be a quote unquote better person. That there are no role models. You look up to somebody, you find out that they cheat on their wife. There are just no role models, especially if you don't have religion in your life. But that's why he reads a lot of biographies and stuff and thinks about other people's lives as a guide about how to live. So John Mulaney has this picture of Bobby Kennedy. I know. He has this picture of Bobby Kennedy on his desk at home. The photo is from 1964. It's Bobby sitting in his suit in a stairwell backstage holding his notes, and he's about to give a speech at the 64 Democratic Convention. His brother, the president, was assassinated a few months earlier. Bobby has barely been seen. The new president, Lyndon Johnson, is this narcissistic bully who had taken his brother's place, and Lyndon Johnson is terrified that Bobby Kennedy is going to steal his thunder. He hates Bobby Kennedy, so he pushes his speech to this shitty time. He has Bobby's hotel room bugged to find out if he's talking about him, and he doesn't give him a green room, which is why he's sitting backstage in the stairwell. Literally sitting on the steps because LBJ wanted to make him as uncomfortable as possible. Bobby Kennedy is as emotionally and politically disillusioned as a person could be. Wow. And he went up and gave that speech. And before he could begin, he got a 19-minute standing ovation. He went on, P.S., this is right. This is from,
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, cried up, girl. He went on to do more in the next 4 years before his death than most people do in a lifetime. This is all this is from the words of John Mulaney. He says, I just think about it a lot. Like, you can go through the worst thing in the world and then people can still treat you with great unkindness. But Bobby didn't evaporate. I look at that photo and I'm like, you will not disintegrate. You can survive things and that will be unpleasant, but you will not physically disintegrate. You can take a lot. I'm not saying I did. I'm saying a human being can. You get back up and you keep going.
Oh my God. Honestly. That is amazing.
John Mulaney.
There are sparks galore.
I know. And look at this photo. So this is the photo that he keeps on his desk of Bobby Kennedy.
Holy crap. That's amazing.
Isn't that just the shit? Looking at somebody like that who is, John Mulaney's work has brought me so much happiness, like so much pleasure. And you also think, he's a great writer. He's a great joke writer. There's a light heart. But we all know that comedians also can have, he's struggled too. He's very honest about like his struggles with addictions and stuff like that. But I just think, oh my gosh, he's brought me so much pleasure. And I just think of him as being so gifted.
Yeah.
And that somebody like that can experience the pain of failure, of real, like, undeniable crushing failure and process through it.
That's right.
And come back from it and continue to get back up and keep going. I
get knocked down, but I get up
in
again.
the words of Chumbawamba.
I'm sorry I brought that into your spark.
No, that's my spark.
But I love him so much. I've just fallen in love even more because he has brought me great joy as well. But knowing like the depth of that human being and his aspiration to be the best human that he can be, in addition to a great artist and someone who does great work. That's really admirable.
We
That's
love
really,
you.
and thinking about that Bobby Kennedy thing, how many times, okay, granted, for me on a much smaller scale, but how many times have you been like off stage, getting ready to do something, and our mind is tempted to get wrapped up in kind of the bullshit of it. Like, that stage manager didn't have this, and that PA, like, why is everyone conspiring against me? And like drama. You can see people get worked up about things that have nothing to do with what they're about to go on to do. So this story of like maintaining a presence of mind in light of how he's being treated, what his environment's like, what he's gone through emotionally to get there, and just staying present in that moment and saying, none of this is going to affect me. I'm going to walk on stage. I'm going to do what I came here to do. That's just.
But who really knows what? Was there a tug of war going on? Was there a wrestling match? Did he have stage fright? Was he just blank slate, white room, just like had so much shit happen to him that, when your nervous system is just like, we're just going to be like, who knows? Who knows?
But what's amazing is that you don't know, because he got on stage and he did what he came there to do. So as an audience member, we're none the wiser. Wouldn't have known that he was sitting in a stairwell. Wouldn't have known like all that backstory, because he went out and he delivered what he needed to deliver to that audience and made that connection with that audience. And that's amazing to set that stuff aside.
Thank you, Bobby Kennedy.
Thank you, Bobby Kennedy.
Pete Holmes. Thank you, John Mulaney.
Thank you.
Chock-a-block with Sparks.
Yes.
So we hope this put another big old mess of sparks in your spark file. But listen, if there's a spark that you'd like us to explore, or there's a spark you want us to share, or a spark you'd like to share, sparks are flying. Email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Apparently, you're supposed to subscribe, rate, and review. I barely know what that means, but do it.
Please do it. And listen up, if something within this podcast tickled your fancy or got your creative juices flowing, please, it's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to write it. You got to recite it. You got to fricassee it. You got to go on and be it. Just take it and make it. Bye.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.